Hello, hello, and welcome to The Real Deal, a talk show about movies, TV, and anything else entertainment. I'm your host, Brian Kalinowski. Our first episode is a special one, and with any special guest, it deserves a special guest. Our special guest today, Sebastian Tariello. How are you, Sebastian?
I'm doing pretty good. How are you?
I'm doing good. Now, Sebastian, I hear you're something of an Oscars expert.
I don't know if I'd say expert, but I do find award season very interesting.
Well, that's good, because if you saw from the title, this show is all about the Oscars today. So, Sebastian, my first question to ask you is what you believe the overall narrative will be for the night on, was it Saturday, March 10th, or Sunday?
Sunday.
Sunday. What is the overall narrative, you think?
I don't know about like overall narrative, but I think that I think we're going to see a lot of Oppenheimer. I think this has been
Definitely
a really interesting year, awards-wise, because typically you'll see that a movie like Oppenheimer, which comes out early, it came out in July, will be a front runner, and then that'll kind of like fall off for some of the newer, shinier fall movies.
Yeah, that's
that
definitely
didn't
rare,
really happen.
right?
Yeah. But this one has managed to really hold on and do very well for itself.
Okay. So do you think Oppenheimer is going to take most of the, I'd say, important awards for the night, mostly?
I think definitely the big two. Picture and director, I think that's pretty sewn up at this point.
So you'd call them locks, right?
Yeah.
For the movie, Best Picture, and director Christopher Nolan.
Yeah, I think so, barring some major upset. I think that's pretty much it.
Of anything, what would you say would be an upset for picture or director? What would be
like
the
most
upset?
likely?
Yeah, if anything.
I guess you could say that for a while I had believed something like The Holdovers, potentially, because that seemed like the kind of nice movie that people maybe like. But I actually would say that an upset could be something like Anatomy of a Fall or The Zone of Interest even, just because they seem to be kind of like building later momentum. But I really don't think there's anything that can overtake Oppenheimer, because while I think it's going to win those two big ones, I think it's also going to win a few acting awards and then a bunch of techs. Like, I think it's going to have a really nice haul.
Okay. So, as you'd said, the overall narrative is pretty much it's Oppenheimer's night.
Yeah. I think Oppenheimer, and then we're going to see that there's some other movies that are going to do decently well. I think that, there was a lot of excitement early on in the season that this could kind of be like a Barbenheimer showdown, but I really don't think that there's much of a race in that sense. I think Barbie's going to maybe take a few awards here. With
Greta's snub not being nominated for director, or Margot for actress.
Yeah, I think that kind of like made it that wasn't really going to happen. But I still think it's going to win something. It's just a matter of like where that will land. But I think that, a lot of the big prizes are pretty locked up, but there are some interesting races this year.
Mm-hmm. What would you say would you call it interesting that I'd say, for Best Picture at least, and a lot of the awards, there's two big foreign films that are being nominated. Usually, we've seen only one or just none altogether.
Yeah.
But now there's two, which is pretty rare for a lot of the years past.
Yeah, I think this is the first time that's ever happened, and it couldn't have happened to two better films. They're really great, and they're very different, which is what's cool. And I think that had France submitted Anatomy of a Fall as their international submission, that definitely would have been nominated, and it would have been interesting to see what would have won in the end, because I think we'll get to it later, but I think that Zone of Interest is kind of just going to walk away with that. Not to like spoil all my picks, but yeah.
So that's your point on that, is that it's a big night for, I'd say, Oppenheimer, and what else? Final thoughts on this?
Probably, I think Oppenheimer's going to have a good night, and I think that something like Anatomy of a Fall could have a good night depending on where it lands.
Okay.
But mainly just Oppenheimer.
All right. I'm really excited to keep talking, but it's time for break. When we return, we'll be discussing what we believe will be winning some of the awards. Don't go away.
Say, President Stanley, whenever there's bad weather, who would you turn to?
I'd turn to Storm Team 10.
No,
right
but you've
here.
got to say it like this. Storm Team 10. Say it with me. Storm Team 10.
Roll it. Jill
Should we
told me it
tell
was
him?
Kitty from Glee. Yeah, what is it?
It's Al Roker.
Welcome back. You're still watching The Real Deal, and I'm glad you are. Now that we got the big picture out of the way, let's discuss some of the categories, what we think will win, or what we would want to win. Are you ready, Sebastian?
I'm ready.
All right. Let's start off with visual effects. What do you think is going to win that?
I think that this is a very interesting category this year because there isn't really a big movie.
Yeah.
With Dune Part 2 moving to this year, that really left it kind of wide open. And I think this is a very eclectic set of nominees. But I wound up going with The Creator.
Why that pick?
This did really well at the Visual Effects Society, which is the guild. And it just kind of feels like the most kind of, when you have a category like this where it doesn't have a Best Picture nominee, and you kind of go for the one that's the most, I guess, like a Best Picture nominee, which in this case, if you look at this category, it's probably Napoleon, but I don't think that one has a lot of passion. I think this one is more of a...
I don't think anyone really cares about Napoleon.
Yeah, so I think that's why that one's kind of out. And I just think The Creator has a lot to it that people find exciting.
Yeah. I definitely think The Creator has a chance, although I think, me personally, I think Godzilla -1 has a good chance as well. Only thing setting it back is probably because it's foreign, but it is the highest grossing Godzilla movie in America now, and in Japan, and internationally. So I think it has a good chance, and it got a lot of word of mouth, and hopefully that resonated with the Academy. What do you think about that?
Yeah, I think that's definitely possible. I think this is just a very kind of up in the air category where I don't think there's a ton of passion, so I think you could see something like Godzilla just kind of take it, and I think that'd be really interesting. So I think it's very open.
All right. So what should we talk about next? What do you want?
I guess we could talk about animated feature because I think that's very interesting.
Yeah. So I think let me see, animated feature, I chose Spider-Verse. I don't think I want it to win. I think I want Boy and the Heron, and I think you chose Boy and the Heron, right?
Yeah, I think this was more
me
going with my heart.
I'm going the safe bet, and I think probably most people are, but this is actually interesting because animated feature, right, usually it's always a lock, especially if it's a Pixar movie or anything.
Like,
but
we
this
know
year,
early.
Yeah, this year there's no clear winner. There's no an Elemental, even it is Pixar, it didn't really do well. No one cared about it. So it's really up in the air between Boy and the Heron and I'd say Spider-Verse.
Spider-Verse, yeah. Because it's just been very split. Like, you know, we saw Globe and BAFTA go Boy and the Heron, and then, but the industry is pretty much going Spider-Verse all the way.
Yeah.
So it's kind of a 50-50 shot.
Yeah.
But I am going Boy and the Heron just because I think there might be a sense that they'll feel like we already did this with the first Spider-Verse movie.
Definitely.
I could totally be wrong, but I think that there's a possibility that could occur.
And that could be why they go for it again, because it's safe, too. And I mean, what was it, Spirited Away that Miyazaki won in 2003 for animated, but that was 20 years ago at this point.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah. So I think it's very up in the air, but I am going Boy and the Heron.
Mm-hmm. What else? What else, Sebastian?
We could talk about the screenplays.
All right. Let's do adapted first, because I think that's the most interesting here. Actually, yeah, let's do adapted. What do you have to say about adapted screenplay?
I'm going American fiction. I think this has won basically everything for adapted screenplay races so far. I think the only thing that could kind of stand in its way, honestly, is that it has yet to compete against Barbie, because Barbie's been original everywhere else. But the writers' branch of the Academy, they deemed it adapted. So I think that this could really be interesting in the end to just see like how they go.
Yeah, I went with Poor Things because I think Yorgos is sort of a safe bet in the Academy. They love him now, and I mean the script is great. I can see American Fiction, but it's just weird to me because it doesn't seem like an Oscar movie. But then again, that's happened before. And but I also put Oppenheimer as a dark horse because it could just add to the sweep that it's likely going to get. So.
Yeah, I think that's very possible. Then it would be having like a record night.
All right. Well, when it comes to these predictions, we can only sit and wait and see what happens. Stick around as we discuss movies that we think should have been nominated for certain categories that were left out.
If you need to do something to feel okay to drive, you're not okay to drive. Don't drive buzzed.
Shine on that black.
Look at the bling. Look at do we got a diamond tester on? Yeah, that's getting bad. Yep.
10 out of 10 recommend on Yelp.
We're going to the playoffs.
I can't believe I missed that.
Every time I'm buzzed, I spend too much time on my phone.
What? I should take your phone away.
No. I'll call for a ride.
Hey, why does my face look like that?
I'm playing with these new face filters.
Okay, you know what? Yep, that's mine.
I'm gonna need that back.
No.
Kevin!
Once again, welcome back to The Real Deal. I hope you are all enjoying the show. Are you enjoying your time on the show, Sebastian?
Yes, I am.
Well, that's great to hear. All right, Sebastian. A lot of great movies got into the running, but as always, there's a lot that is left out and not given its due or nomination. Let's talk about some of these movies we think should have been nominated. Let's start off with you.
I think that this overall was a pretty good. It was a pretty good list of nominations. It was a great year for movies overall, and I think that this was. There were a lot of good surprises. There were definitely some movies that I love that did not get their due, and we'll discuss that here. But I think overall, like, I give them a lot of props this year because I think it was actually a much better list than we've seen in some recent years.
Yeah. So why don't we start off with actor? Who do you think, of your choice, who do you think should have been nominated for actor?
So the one I chose as my write-in was Zac Efron in The Iron Claw, which The Iron Claw was this great movie that came out at the end of the year, and it kind of just didn't have the time it needed to.
Didn't have the gestation period.
Yeah, like I think they just dropped that a little too late, and but it's really great, and at least it did well, financially for them. That was good. But I would have really liked to have seen Zac Efron recognized because he gives this really emotional performance, and it's unlike anything he's ever done before, and it's really impressive.
Yeah. I definitely think he should have been one of them. But I went with Andrew Scott from All of Us Strangers because his performance, at least in the movie, along with Paul Mescal, is something that is, I don't know, cerebral? I don't know what word I would use. Would you think of a word now that you've seen the movie?
I think I would just say that I think that Andrew Scott, he's giving a performance that's very. It's super internal, and it's not really the type of thing they typically go for. But I think that it's really something that we should be celebrating more. I think overall it was a good group of nominees. I think all 5 of them that got in are really great. There are some people that I maybe wouldn't have picked myself, but I think it's a good list. And but there was like an embarrassment of riches this year. It was really great.
It's a great list, but it's pretty much a lock at this point that Cillian Murphy from Oppenheimer is going to win with, I'd say, Paul Giamatti being a dark horse.
Yeah, I was kind of holding on to hope for a while that Paul Giamatti could take it. I do love Cillian Murphy in Oppenheimer, but I think Paul Giamatti's giving this like really great performance in this movie that is just a real like cozy gem. And it would have been really cool to see him win that. But I think that it's pretty much a lock now.
So why don't we move on to supporting actress? I'll start off with me. I went with Rosamund Pike from Saltburn. I don't think she would win because it's basically Divine Joy Randolph's to win no matter who is in there. It's basically hers to win. But it would have been nice to see Rosamund get a nomination. One, because of her previous work. I mean, she should have won for Gone Girl back in the day. But in this movie, I think her performance is more understated than the rest of the cast, but it adds to the overall story, and especially Barry Keoghan's performance as well, and his journey.
Yeah, I really like her in that movie, and she's given some amazing lines to say, like some really funny stuff, and she's, she does that amazing thing where it's like, she'll be like kind of nice and like, be putting on this thing and then just say something really dark-sided. Yeah. And I think she really handles that well. For my pick, I went with Rachel McAdams for Are You There, God? It's Me, Margaret, which is this really nice movie that came out early in the year, and I think it got kind of written off because for two reasons. I think one, it was seen as kind of a family film, not really an awards thing. And then also, I just think that it's, you know, it might have been kind of like, you know, there was a lot of talk with the Oscar nominations this year, especially with like the Barbie misses, about them just not responding well to movies made by women and kind of like about women. And I think the movie that really should have gotten talked about a little bit more with that was Are You There, God? It's Me, Margaret, because it was just kind of just forgotten. And it's a really great movie, and Rachel McAdams is just giving a really nice performance. It's really, really great stuff.
Yeah. So I want to talk about, I think we can skip over score just because I think Oppenheimer is basically going to win. Although, what was your pick, just quickly, so we can get over that?
The Boy and the Heron.
Boy and the Heron. And I went with Spider-Verse because I think the score in Across the Spider-Verse is actually even better than the original, an improvement. So let's skip to cinematography real quickly. I went with All of Us Strangers because as you said, internal, like his acting was internal. I think the cinematography does an amazing job of showing that internal nature of his character and the exterior of everyone else. What would you say quickly for that, and then your pick?
I definitely agree. I think that there's a lot of really interesting stuff going on with that cinematography. That's one of those movies I think that was always going to be underrated in terms of craft categories because it's not necessarily the most showy. Mm-hmm. And I think that when you're going for the crafts, you really have to kind of be showy. Which brings me to my pick, which I think it is a little bit surprising that a movie like Saltburn, which is super showy in terms of its cinematography, you know, it's in 4:3. It has some really amazing uses of color. I think it's a really, you know, listening to the cinematographer and Emerald Fennell, the director, speak about why they shot it this way. You know, they were talking about how they wanted it to seem almost voyeuristic. I think they really succeed in that. And I think the reason why that movie succeeds in the way it does, I think, is partially due to the cinematography.
All right. Let's finish up with our last two that I'm going to do. Director. Who would you pick for director to be nominated?
I actually went with Celine Song, who directed Past Lives. Mm-hmm. Once again, this is yet another thing where it's kind of not the most showy, and it's very understated. But I think it takes a lot of skill to make a movie that's as subtle as this and beautiful and really executed beautifully. Yeah,
I went with Miyazaki for Boy and the Heron, mainly just because there's a whole other aspect of directing, and it's putting yourself in the movie, and also like how would you put this? Putting everything you have into a movie, and he is a man who puts literally his entire life into every one of his movies, but especially this one currently. So yeah, I'm definitely going to do that. So yeah. So, all right. So what else do we have to talk about? I think
I think we should talk about some of, or one of our favorite movies that got no nominations.
Oh, yes.
Because some of these movies we've named, they did manage to get nominations in other categories. They just maybe missed in places we would have done it. But there are always great movies every year that get no nominations.
Yes. So what would be a movie, or some movies that didn't get anything? What would you talk about?
I already mentioned this one before, but I definitely feel that The Iron Claw was really deserving. I went into this movie earlier. I wound up seeing it earlier this year, and it's just a really great movie that I didn't really know what to expect going in, but it's super emotional and extremely well done. And I really would have liked to have seen it recognized in multiple categories. And like I said, I just think it had to do with the fact that it dropped very late, and it didn't have enough time to build that momentum.
Yeah. I definitely, for me, I think there's The Killer. I'm sort of surprised it didn't get anything, since Fincher has sort of been a awards mainstay. Well, he hasn't won anything because they
but
don't
his
like.
films are typically,
Yeah, but
they have
his
something.
films are always awards mainstays. What else? All of Us Strangers didn't get anything.
Yeah.
I'm kind of surprised about that, I gotta say. And then I'd say just a off the barrel pick, Bottoms. It didn't.
Yeah, that was I really love that one, and I would have loved if that could have maybe like been like a dark horse in like original screenplay. We definitely had a spot for it.
Yeah, because it's definitely it's still a comedy, but it's like it's a highbrow comedy.
Yeah.
Sort of in the way that American Fiction is, and that got nominated. And it's gonna it might win.
Yeah.
So.
Also, I would say I just want to throw out Priscilla. I really loved that one. I love Sofia Coppola. I think she's a wonderful filmmaker, and that's a really, really great film. You could have gone for Crafts for that. Kaylee Spaney in Best Actress would have been a really, really great, deserving pick.
Yeah. Mention the Saltburn about getting nothing.
Yeah. That would have been good for some crafts and maybe screenplay.
I'm shocked. Emerald Fennell did play for Promising Young Woman just like 3 years ago, and it was big when she won.
Yeah.
And I'm surprised.
Yeah, and I think that's a movie that, like, it didn't do the best in theaters, but once it hit Amazon Prime, it got a lot of people talking, so you would have thought it maybe would have shown up somewhere.
Yeah. Right. So in these last few minutes, I want to ask you, what would be your most and least deserved Best Picture wins of all time? So what movie do you think deserved it the most and deserved it the least? Start off with most deserved.
Movies Oppenheimer being, but that was a February release, and it managed to stay there all year because it's so.
With the big.
Yeah, which we have.
So, but that's out. What's your least deserved Best Picture win in your opinion?
This is a controversial pick, but I would have to go with Forrest Gump. I think it's a really just an okay movie in a group of films that I would say was a really great lineup. That was the Pulp Fiction year. That was Shawshank Redemption.
Considered two of the greatest movies ever made.
Yeah, and they didn't manage to win. And I just think that one is just kind of all right, not great.
So I think for me, I don't know if I have a most deserved. Actually, no. I think Parasite would be my most deserved because I remember seeing it in theaters and like knowing nothing, and it was sort of an amazing experience. And then I watched the momentum build to its Best Picture win, and that was a great experience for me. So that's my best. And least I have to say is The King's Speech, because how do you beat The Social Network? So that's all I have to say about that. Well, that does it for the first episode of The Real Deal. I would like to thank Sebastian for being with me in this discussion and episode. Any last words, Sebastian?
I'm very excited for Sunday. I thought it was a really great year, and I'm excited to see some of my favorite films of the year pick up some awards, some last final awards, because award season spans like a really long time, and this season in particular has felt like an eternity, but it's going to be really nice to see some of these get some more.
Yeah, definitely. All right. From all of us here at the Al Roker Studio in the Murano Campus Center, we bid you a good night. Good night, folks.